I didn't want to be the kind of player that, brings the meta deck to Worlds and wins. But if you want to, it's like the difference between winning Worlds and going to Worlds for fun. And I think most people would pick
World Champion is
to win.
I have to ask this question then. What are your next steps after this? Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everybody. Today, I'm with last year's Vanguard World Champion, Woody Ho. Would you like to give a quick introduction to the camera?
Hey guys, I'm Woody Ho. I'm the card games Perfect Vanguard specialist for the U of T CGC Club. I am also, as Daniel said, the World Champion of Perfect Vanguard in the 2024-2025 series.
Yeah, and today we're going to be going over his journey to becoming the World Champion. And today we're going to be kind of going with some of the behind the scenes stuff, the stuff that you don't see when people go and become World Champion of something, right? And today, Woody has graciously given us the opportunity to come and share some of that information to you guys. All right, Woody, to kind of start off, we have to ask the penultimate question. What got you into trading card games, and especially Vanguard in this case?
Yeah, so as a kid, I started playing when I was 8. My brother was the one that actually got me into the game to begin with. It was a good way for us to, get together as brothers and siblings to, find a common hobby to just play at home with. Not so anything that's digital, right? So, because as a kid, you don't have access to computers or anything like that. It was a really great chance for us to talk, put our thought process together and hang out.
All right. I then have to ask them, how did you start to play this game competitively?
So I actually got into the game competitively once I'd gone to Toronto for my university year.
Oh, wow.
So that was 2022, I believe.
Wow, same year as my first week.
So I got here maybe a month before school started, and regionals was around September, October-ish. And my brother started playing a bit of Vanguard, but I was the one that actually pushed us to, try and compete in our first regionals, which was the 2022 series for Worlds.
Wow. So it wasn't your brother that got you into it, it was you who...
Yeah, so it was actually the other way around this time.
Oh, yeah. Wow, I never knew that. Why was the other way around? Usually it's the older sibling.
Exactly.
That's really interesting.
And the best part was we both did really well for our first regionals, right? We played for a month, and I think we went XN3 in a 7 or 8 round Swiss. So, better than average, 50%. And with completely no idea what all the decks did. So that kind of gave us the idea that, maybe we actually have a shot in playing this game competitively after all.
Okay, well, that's actually mighty impressive because if you think about it, that's 3 years until you became World Champion. That is an insane exponential result in terms of anything. So kind of going into that, Len, can you kind of explain how you practice for Worlds? Did you practice with your brother? Did you practice with other people? And what decks did you kind of try to prepare for?
Yeah, so I mainly practiced my brother at home, right? This was, I think, usually nowadays even, we play maybe an hour or two daily. When we get closer to any big regionals or Worlds event, for instance, we're going to Chicago soon, this weekend, we play maybe a bit more, 2 to 3 hours, just testing out different decks. I also go to locals quite often. I go on Tuesdays to 401s. I go to even Perfect Sphere Games, which is in Scarborough, and Chaos Collectibles, which is in Markham. That's where I met most of my friends that are in locals, right? People outside of school. I also practice at the card game club with my friends here on Fridays. So that's a great opportunity for us to, test out different decks. And then when I was deciding what deck to play, there was actually 3 I was deciding for Worlds. One of them was Prison, which was the deck I won the Toronto regionals with. So I wanted to kind of pay an homage to the deck that got me to Worlds in the first place, right? Okay. The second deck was Lima. To put it in simpler terms, this deck is a OTK deck where you want to blow up your opponent in one turn. The only issue is that if you manage to brick or not get your pieces at all, well, you lose the game and it's out of control, right? So I'm a player of consistency, and that's where I got to my third option, which was Bob Sargra. This was the newly released deck that was quite overtuned, was quite consistent, and there wasn't a lot of methods to counterplay the deck at all, right? I didn't want to be the kind of player that, brings the meta deck to Worlds and wins. But if you want to, it's the difference between winning Worlds and going to Worlds for fun, right? And I think most people would pick the latter option, or to win.
That's a great answer. right? That's a winner mentality here. So, let's actually go to like the day of competition, like going there, you see all of like the world's best competitors. Like, how did you feel like going through the day? Like, was there any specific challenges you faced other than maybe, the fact that you had to play Vanguard for that much?
I think when before even going to Worlds, I felt I think the best word is imposter syndrome, maybe. It's like, I only played for 2-3 years at that point competitively. And these people that went to Worlds are all people that played for even more than me, right? And I didn't really have much time to practice either, because Worlds was at the start of May, the exam season in April. So I had spent most of my time studying, right? And I felt like I didn't put enough effort in to, warrant myself going to Worlds. But, I blocked that thought out of my head. I was like, what, I got there, I deserve it. And I'm sure everybody else that went there also deserves it. So give it my best shot. If I win, I win. If I lose, well, I have a great story to tell. And guess what? I won. And I have a great story to tell regardless.
I just have to ask that, now that you brought up the fact that you won, which is common knowledge at this point, how did it feel to stand on that podium and just look at all the competitors and be like, holy, I'm gonna bleep that in post. But, oh my God, how did that feel? Was it actually you describe it. It's probably
yes. So, man, it was... I don't think there's a way to describe it well, because it's impossible, right? Like, you went through an entire day, I think it was 12 hours at that point, of playing, on time in between, right? And just when I won, it was I didn't believe it at first. I was like, it's over. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of processed me holy, that in post. I won! What? And then, I didn't want to jump around and just screaming, because I was on stream. I didn't want to seem insulting to my opponent. But inside my head, it's you know how you have cartoon character in your head? It was jumping around and screaming and doing dances and stuff. Yeah. Okay. And same before all the other people, I felt really proud of myself. And I was also especially thankful to my brother, right? Because he also went to Worlds actually, but he played in a different format. He got 9th. Okay. So he couldn't make it to top cut, which was really unfortunate. It was one standing away. Wow. But it was a way to dedicate our mutual effort together.
Was there any particular opponent or moment in the day that got you really stressed then, if you don't mind me asking?
So it was actually both my stream games. So round 5 of Swiss, I fought against I believe he was from UK. And then he was playing a deck called Resile, right? So the entire point of this deck is to basically return all your trigger cards to your deck. And then you have a lot of power, you have a lot of draw potential, so you have a lot of defensive capabilities too. And then when I had my board completely set up for the kill, he hits the over trigger, which completely just shuts down my entire turn, right? So I just have to pass, and then at that point I knew I lost. And this was round 5 of Swiss. Keep in mind, I need to be at least X1 to be guaranteed in, X2 for a chance to get into top cut. So I was terrified, because this is round 5, I need to win 2 more. And everybody who is in the same ranking as me, right, X1, they're all equally desperate to win. So they're bound to make, YOLO moves, they're going crazy, okay, right? I have to be very careful and, just play my best. And the last one would be the final round of for finals.
That's right.
The nerves is getting to me, and my opponent, he played Lima, the OTK deck. So the game is completely in his control, honestly, because it's a matter of whether or not he bricks or not. Okay. And not only that, his deck plays he plays a very strange list that plays defensive cards that for an OTK that you wouldn't, right? So the moment I saw them, I kind of clicked to my head, which was oh, he's not going to go for the first turn kill. He's going to go for the second turn, using the first turn as a way to set up, poke some damage in, and then use the second one to kill me, right? So I had an extra turn of buffer room to kind of go and go for the kill and see what happens. And I knew that if I failed, then it would be game over at that point.
I also know that you got a ticket to Japan and they toured you around. How was that? Can you speak to that day?
Yeah, so I went to Japan for roughly a week, and it was great because I haven't been for several years at that point, right? I went to Akihabara, which is the world of otaku. I like anime. I like anime, obviously not to extreme level, but I really appreciate it. So I went around, bought a lot of stuff. There was a lot of card game stores there too, so I bought a lot of good supplies for my friends here in Toronto. I went to a card game festival called Vanguard, which is the Bushy Road card game festival for Vanguard, White Wars, Shadowverse, you can name it. And I got to play with a bunch of Japanese players too, so that was a great experience.
Okay, yeah. Kind of speaking to like the player side of it, a lot of people who want to get into like trading card games kind of chalk it up to luck. They're like, oh man, the game's all luck based. I play Yu-Gi-Oh, so you hear like a lot of like the 90% luck of just drawing the cards. What do you think about that argument of like luck versus actual strategy?
So I believe that for Vanguard, being lucky is hitting triggers. So as a quick explanation to people who haven't played Vanguard, triggers are cards with effects that when your Vanguard attacks your opponent, you flip the top two cards of your deck, and if there's trigger, well, you can either heal, draw, get power, or deal extra damage, right? So yes, hitting triggers is luck, but there is strategy to manipulating your luck, right? You can, most importantly, thin your deck out by using pieces to, remove deck cards from your deck that aren't triggers. And I'm sure in Yu-Gi-Oh! There are ways to, cards that search for other cards, so you have a complete board and stuff like that. Sometimes it baffles me that some people don't kind of see the difference between those two, right? For instance, in the final round, I played a card called Fire Wrangling, which basically says look at top 5 and call a card. So this immediately thins your deck by 1. And then I call a card that lets me multi-attack, right? And I played another card that thins like maybe 2 more cards from your deck. And at that point, that's already like maybe 4 or 5% chance, like an increase in hitting triggers. And I hit the over trigger off that. So everything you do compounds to, manipulating your luck to increase your odds.
Okay, that's great to hear. I have to ask this question then. What are your next steps after this? I heard you mention like consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going for the consistent world wins? I'm just asking.
Oh, that's the plan. Right now, I think I'm gonna take it easy a bit, right? Focus on school.
Yeah.
Because it's my final year after all. I want to end things off in high notes. And, still want to hang out with my friends, my brother. As I said earlier, we're going to Chicago this weekend. Hopefully we can get another win there, rep Toronto again.
Represent.
And also the card game club.
Yeah, represent.
And yeah, so there's gonna be a quick upgrade for my prison deck, right? That's coming out in I think 3 or 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll definitely be upgrading that no matter how much it is, because it's expensive, but
Yeah.
hey, it's paying respects to the deck that it's a deck that got me into the game as well, and also a deck that won me my regionals.
Thank you, Woody, for sharing all of that. I just have to ask like one thing in general though. If I were like a Vanguard player and I wanted to just like be like you, what would be the one piece of advice that you would give to like kind of get them to your point?
Yeah. So I think there are actually 2 things you need to do, right? First is you need to get to know people and practice with them, right? For example, I have my brother with me, I have people at the card game club with me, I have people in the locals with me, right? They all gave great advice, great strategy. They all open up like different kind of thought processes to how to play the game, right? For example, you can choose to not attack your opponent, to completely cut off their resources, right? And things like that are very eye-opening and makes you think about the game way differently than you used to. The other most important thing, and you can take this into like anything and in any field, is practice. You need to practice often and consistently, right? If you don't play, if you don't do the math, if you don't, think critically, it is impossible to get really good at like any sort of sport or even card games or work.
That was beautifully said. That was beautifully said. I hope that like inspired someone in the audience to go and become like the next Vanguard. Actually, no, probably not. In a different format of Vanguard. He's going for the consistent win on it.
Yeah, I gotta go again. Win the second game.
Well, thank you for meeting with us today, Woody.
course.
I just have to ask though, would you happen to have something cool to show the audience? Maybe something that you won from Vanguard Worlds?
Actually, I do. I brought it here today. So I got several things for participating and entering the tournament. So this first one on the right is the energy generator that you get for participating in Worlds. And the one to the left is the champion card, right? So it's a starter, which is used in any Kender Sanctuary deck, and it's the one of one in World. There is no other copy there in existence, and I have not taken out the case that they have provided. There's other things that I got as well. I got a top 4 and top 8 overtrigger for Kenner, but then I already sold that away. And most importantly, I have a sponsored invite to Worlds next year. So I have my plane ticket sponsored, I have my hotel sponsored, so I am looking forward to going there next year.